Welcome back to an evening update. We're going to be walking you through the weather pattern as we go into late February and early March. And this could bring some active weather in the form of some winter storms with some more heavy snow and ice, but the potential for heavy rain and even severe weather as we turn especially into the new month of March. If you are here and you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We are just 646 people away from 129,000, and you can help me get there by subscribing to my channel. Like the video, give it a thumbs up if you do find this video informative, and of course share this video with friends, family, and on social media. I definitely appreciate it. Let's look at our temperature anomalies this evening because we are seeing a nice warm up here. Even though you see a lot of blue and purple here on the screen, we are starting to see some improvements in our temperature anomalies. Just a couple nights ago, we saw temperature anomalies during Wednesday evening that were 40, 50 degrees below normal. This evening, 30 degrees below normal, which is still cold, but not nearly as cold as what we saw just a couple of evenings ago. Let's look here at our high temperatures we achieved across the central U.S. this Friday afternoon on February 21st. Notice a lot of teens and 20s out there, so a nice warm up compared to what we have seen over the past couple of afternoons. Here is where we go as we go into overnight tonight and waking up for your Saturday morning at 6 a.m. These are your temperatures. A lot of single digits out there, also lots of teens and 20s, so it's going to be another cold morning to start tomorrow morning, but not nearly as cold as what we saw just a few nights ago. And notice our wind chills, yes, will be going below zero across a large chunk of the Midwest, but they're only a handful of degrees below zero. I don't see any double-digit below zero wind chills here on the maps. But if you do live in Wisconsin, northern Illinois, Iowa, much of Minnesota, parts of Nebraska, especially eastern Nebraska, northeast Kansas and northern Missouri, and even parts of the Ohio Valley like Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan, a lot of these areas will be waking up between 0 and maybe as low as 10 below at the very cold part of the night as we go into tomorrow morning. Let's look at the west. Here's your highs this afternoon. We saw a lot of 20s, 30s out here as well, 70s, even a couple 80s showing up on the maps across far southern California and into southern Arizona as well. Coldest further off to the north. Here are your lows as you wake up Saturday morning. Again, this is 6 o'clock, and notice we are seeing the coldest air, as they should be, across the higher elevations of the Rockies. Outside of that area, we're going to see more of the 30s, 20s, and even some 40s mixed in there across the west. Across the east, here are your high temperatures we achieved this afternoon. We saw a lot of teens and 20s, even up into the northeast, a nice marked warm-up from what we saw a couple of days ago. And here are where we go tomorrow morning as we go into Saturday. Notice a lot of areas back into the single digits and teens for lows tonight above zero. But areas with a deeper, more dense snowpack across upstate New York, parts of Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine could remain maybe near zero to a few degrees below zero with our air temperatures. Our wind chills over here may still struggle to reach, 10 degrees below zero. A lot of us may be a little bit below that, 15, 20 degrees below zero. So make sure to cover up exposed skin if you're headed outdoors in Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, upstate New York, even parts of Massachusetts tomorrow morning, as it'll still be pretty cold. Now, as we go to the weekend, here are your temperature anomalies in the eastern U.S. We are leaning below normal, and then across the west, especially up here in western Canada, stretching all the way back to Alaska, we're going to be above normal with our temperatures both Saturday, February 22nd, and Sunday, February 23rd. Notice as we go through the weekend, right now, starting here this evening, not much happening across the lower 48, a little bit of some drizzle and light shower activity across the Rio Grande and south central Texas. Also a storm system bringing some heavier rains to western Washington state. Our friends over in Seattle seeing some of that liquid precipitation this evening. Higher elevation snows in northern Washington state. Most of that is in British Columbia, Canada. As we go through the day on Saturday, notice around midday, we're still seeing that moisture there in Seattle and areas surrounding that up into British Columbia. Some drizzle down here and some rain showers across coastal Texas, Corpus Christi, maybe as far north and east as Houston and Galveston. We'll keep an eye on that. Not too big of a deal there. And then as we go into Saturday evening, notice a lot of that just continues to move up across Houston, maybe as far north as Waco, Tyler, Texas, and even into Lake Charles. Could have some lighter showers, maybe a few rumbles of thunder as we go into Sunday morning. More widespread rains into Sunday morning and overnight Saturday across the Pacific Northwest, this time further south into Oregon, so Portland, Eugene, and Medford, and then as far south as Northern California could see some of that moisture. And like I mentioned, that continues to ooze its way eastward into Idaho, western Montana, some of this mixing with snow in the higher elevations through the day there on Sunday. Notice with the severe weather potential, we don't have any of that today, so that's some great news. Going into the weekend here, Saturday, February 22nd, just a general thunderstorm risk across southeast Texas, Louisiana, and far southwest Mississippi in the light green. These are just your general everyday, garden variety type storms. Heavy rain, maybe some pea-sized hail at worst case scenario, and then that area shrinks with areas mainly near the southern parishes of Louisiana to getting the threat for some thunderstorms non-severe as we go into Sunday, February 23rd. Here's the rainfall map, and notice a lot of us will remain dry this weekend. The most notable areas of precipitation will be the Pacific Northwest into Washington and Oregon, Northwest California, and then over here into Idaho, parts of Montana, western Wyoming. A lot of these areas will see at least a couple inches of rain, especially Seattle southward to Portland, Eugene, and Medford. And then some rainfall could be heavy at times from Houston, Galveston over there toward Lake Charles, Baton Rouge, and New Orleans, picking up an inch to possibly 2 inches worth of rain through this weekend. And a lot of the cold air is going to be bottled up to the north here in Canada. So we're going to see the heaviest snows across the higher elevations where it's naturally colder. Pacific Northwest, some areas could be seeing upwards to 60, 70 inches worth of snow. And then the Great Lakes region here into interior parts of the Northeast, especially upstate New York, northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and Maine, could be picking up an inch and a half of snow as we go into the weekend. Really not that big of a deal. Heading into next week, the last week of February, this is Monday, February 24th through Friday, February 28th. The polar vortex is parked up here to where it should be in northern Canada and the Arctic, and it is still bringing a little bit of a lobe of some colder air into the eastern United States. But notice this ridge across the west, and this spikes all the way up into western Canada, into British Columbia, Alberta, and even Yukon, the Northwest Territories. That's where that ridge extends up to as we go into next week, and that will promote warmer temperatures. Here's the temperature map during that 5-day period next week, and notice we're seeing a lot of above normal temperatures in these oranges and reds all the way up into Alaska, much of Canada, especially western Canada for Yukon, the Northwest Territories, British Columbia, all the way east here into Manitoba and Ontario, and then much of the western third of the U.S. as well, getting those above normal temperatures. I think the eastern third, even though the show's orange, I think a lot of us will be leaning a little bit closer to normal, if not below normal with their temperatures next week. Something to keep an eye on as we go into that time frame. But it's going to be a drier trend, so if you're along the Gulf Coast into the southeast and areas as far north as the Ohio River, probably going to remain below normal with precipitation. Doesn't mean we'll have zero amounts of precipitation in these areas, just a lot less than we should have, and the active weather will be over the top of that ridge. In British Columbia, I think these areas could see some heavy snowfall in the higher elevations on the western shoreline there of Canada, and then some heavier snowfall potentially inland as well, and that could translate into the Great Lakes region and northeast of the United States. Now let's look here at the weather pattern as we go into next week. Here's Monday, February 24th. Notice a clipper system bringing some lighter snow to the upper Great Lakes. This could bring some rain and or snow showers to the upper peninsula of Michigan, lower Michigan, and parts of Ontario and Quebec, mostly as snow up there. More rain for the Pacific Northwest, and also want to note some heavier rain in southern Florida as well. If you're in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, over here towards Tampa Bay, Naples, Fort Myers, Key West, a lot of areas down here seeing some heavier rainfall to start the week there on Monday. It'd be a dreary day. As we go into Tuesday, that moves offshore, but we just have this active conveyor belt of storm systems over top of that ridge, and we're pretty dry again in the desert southwest and the southern U.S., like we mentioned, near the Gulf Coast. But over the top, here comes another clipper, maybe an inch or so of snow there by midweek, and then here comes another one right behind it. Again, this one could affect areas maybe in northern Minnesota, maybe in Wisconsin, Michigan, as we go into the northeast as we go into next weekend. So you get the idea. We're getting a lot of active weather further to the north. Here is the precipitation as we go into next week between Monday, February 24th and Friday, February 28th. Notice a lot of that is focused in the Pacific Northwest, specifically Washington State and Oregon, from Seattle to Portland, and then across the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, and the Northeast. And a lot of that is snowfall further north across the upper Midwest from northern Minnesota into northern Wisconsin, the upper peninsula of Michigan, northern lower Michigan, and then interior sections of the Northeast like northern Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, upstate New York, maybe northern Pennsylvania, seeing an inch to 3 inches of snow as we go into next week. Otherwise, the bulk of that snowfall will be up there into Canada, and we're seeing some decent snow here across portions of the Northwest Territories, Yukon, across northern Alberta, Saskatchewan, and then that dives south into the southern provinces of Manitoba, Ontario, and Quebec. So definitely seeing some snowfall there. Let's go into into early March now, and again, it's not like we're that far away, so we can talk about this, at least with a grain of salt. We can look at the pattern here in the upper levels. We are looking here at the blue. That means that our temperatures will be kind of trending below normal, if you will, into the first 7-8 days of March. And then we're kind of seeing a split pattern out here across the west with maybe warmer and or normal conditions with our temperatures. And that verifies here in the temperature anomaly map the first 7 days or so of March, going through the 7th, 8th time frame. We're warmest up here in Alaska and up into northwest Canada, Yukon, the Northwest Territories, and then down across parts of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. But also look at the eastern U.S. We're trending below normal just because we have a little bit of colder air coming back, and we're near normal to slightly below normal out west as well. Doesn't mean we're going to be seeing a major Arctic blast, but just some colder temperatures than normal and a lot of green on the map, which means active weather will reside as we go into early March. This could bring some heavier rainfall and precipitation to the west coast, and then downstream from there, bigger storm systems are possible in this pattern in the central and eastern U.S. in early March, going between March 1st and the 8th. We could be seeing heavy rain events, watching out for at least some isolated severe weather near the Gulf Coast, Dixie Alley in particular, into the southeast, maybe as far north as the mid-Atlantic with that severe weather threat if we see some of that materialize in the first week of March. And then further to the north, where the coldest air actually kind of hangs itself up across the northern U.S., the northeast, and southeastern Canada, pretty good footprint of at least a couple inches of snow from the upper Midwest and the northern plains, bigger footprint, bigger signal for snow in Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and upstate New York, where the purples are showing. That could be several inches of snow with a bigger snowstorm, and then that could mean more heavy snow into southern Quebec as we go through the first week of March. Well, hey, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe to my channel. We are just less than 700 subscribers away from 129,000. You guys can all help me get there by subscribing to the channel. I'll keep you updated with all the most reliable, accurate weather information here on YouTube. Like the video, give it a thumbs up with the thumbs up button as well. If you did find it informative, share this video with friends, family, and on social media, and I'll see you all tomorrow with another weather forecast.